objective of all is to ensure quality. Okay, quality includes we when we talk we are considering food safety here also, food safety, authenticity, legality. Okay, so overall terminology we call it as a quality. Okay, so there are multiple standards which are gaining momentum, and they are being adopted by various food industries. Earlier it was HACCP, GMP certification. Eventually it became it was like ISO 20000, which was adopted by industries. But there were some issues. Now majority of the industry, when we see the audit report, like 60 to 80% are because of GMP GHP issues. To strengthen this, there are schemes like FSSC 22000, which came into existence by combining this ISO 22000, ISO TS technical specification 22002, to ensure that there is a clear focus on GMP issues. So there are specification which talks about detail about pest control, like ISO 20000. It was pest control word mentioned, but what pest control means, because there were different interpretation, different people used to define their requirement. Okay, but it is now explicitly mentioned in ISO TS 20002. So combining this, FSSC 20000 is being adopted in India. Okay, even multiple countries. There are standards like BRC Global Food Safety Standard, IFS, SQF. These are also very detailed standard, and they are at par with the GFSI scheme, Global Food Safety Initiative scheme. Okay, so what food safety management system plan covers? Okay, so ideally these topics are, when we discuss about one standard, this is one day topic, or it's like more, but I'm touching upon some of the uh, important aspects which will help you to decide which area we should focus on. Okay, which areas are important and how there is a continual improvement required. Okay, so FSMS plan, typically a quality management system plan, will cover prerequisite program, which is GMP, GHP, HACCP principles. Okay, there are 5 prerequisite and 7 principles, and documentation. So documentation is part which will give evidence that the system is being followed. Okay. So what are the main areas, or we can say what are the important aspects of it, to identify weakness of production line? This is one of the area. It also suggests critical limits, whether it is in compliance with the legislation, and the preventive and corrective measures are sufficient enough to control the issues, quality issues or hazards. Okay, so the aim is zero defect products, yet not feasible to achieve 100% defective free products. But yes, we can always strive to zero defect product. Okay, sanitation standard operating procedures along with GMP practices, which are considered as prerequisite for HACCP, that is a base of HACCP. Okay, and without that HACCP cannot become successful. HACCP plan should cover total supply chain, from inbound logistic to storage, processing, sanitation, maintenance, to the final use by consumer. So these are broader aspects of a food safety management system, or you can call it as a quality management system in food industry. Okay, so what was the old structure and why they wanted to put it as a new structure? There is a high level structure. You can see here in 2005 the clauses where food safety management system responsibility, resource management, planning and realization of safe product, validation, verification and improvement. So those clauses. Now the structural change, what was the structural change? Like context of the organization, okay, in which they are operating, leadership, planning. So more of focus, almost you can see 4 clauses are for planning. So PDCSL, any standard in quality management is made in a structured way, which is a PDCA. Okay, we can see context of the organization, leadership, planning, support are in planning. You can say it is under planning. Okay, operation, that is actually a doing part, which is covering entire operation. Then performance evaluation, which includes management review, improvement. Okay, that is checking, and then acting. Now, acting means whatever observations are there, whatever issues are being identified or discussed in management review, those are to be actionalized with the time frame. Okay, and this is how these structures are now helping industry to improve on the food safety culture. Now, food safety culture is one of the new area which is coming up, which is again part of FSSC 22000, and it is going to help industry to reduce non-compliances with respect to GMP and GSP. Now, what are the challenges we as a food industry face in quality management, like trained manpower? So there are requirements of uh, particular job with skilled, unskilled. Okay, so it depends which type of job is being carried out. So trained manpower, the continuous training, the trainings like refresher training, induction training, all these are part of it, like training need identification. Then tools. Now, quality assurance tools, which we are going to discuss, these are challenges out of which some of the challenges we will look in next slide, where there is opportunity. Okay, then awareness. So awareness again, it's under training, but awareness is about national standard FSSAI, then international standard or standards of importing countries, or where we are exporting. Okay, resistance. Now, always see that there is a resistance to change. Okay, when there is a resistance to change, people are not adopting certain uh, aspects of new technology, or they are not taking up it seriously, or they are not always ensuring that this is getting implemented. Okay, and even reactive management is also part where the problems come and then we start working against it. Okay, to make sure it doesn't happen. Okay, so these are majority challenges. There are some system related challenges where we can see the problems with competence. Okay, food safety team member or quality assurance team member. So internal auditors trainings are being conducted, but what happens, those internal auditors are not carrying out the internal audits. It might be the time constraint, it might be the willingness. So there is a problem with competence. Okay, lack of third part of the hazard analysis, that is mandatory document requirement, compliance to those requirement in standard like ISO 20000. There are certain documents where shall is mentioned in the standard, it is mandatory. Okay, so likewise there are requirements. Then training records of personnel responsible for monitoring activities. Now there are critical aspects. So when we say a metal detector is a critical control point, CCP, okay, the point at which controls can be applied to minimize, eliminate, or reduce the hazard to an acceptable level. Okay, so those areas need to be monitored by a trained person. Now we were talking about metal detector few years back, and recently we are talking about uh, the X-rays, then hyperspectral imaging. Okay, so these are the areas where we can reduce the person dependence, and also but the person who runs that equipment need to be trained. Okay, then validations is like there are issues with complete absence of validation, or there are incomplete protocols. In this regard, Codex has made a validation guideline which can be adopted by the industry, and it will help to make sure the validations are uh, correct. Okay, no updating of the system. This is again one of the area. Then no analysis of verification activities. Verification activities, like when we carry out verification, like once in an hour, the readings of the day has to be analyzed whether there is too much of deviation. So people, quality assurance people should always look at whether the process is capable or whether process is not capable. What are the areas which are needed to improve, like consistency of the product, whether it is like consistent product is being delivered to the customer. Okay. Weak verification plan specifically related to PRP and acceptable levels of the hazard. Now, whenever we see auditor comes, he will always find out some of the cleaning issues, some of the broken wall, broken ceiling or broken tiles. Okay, so these are all GMP and prerequisites. Some cleaning issues. Now equipment, when you go and see and open up the equipment, it is not clean. So these are the areas. This is again weak verification plan that indicates that you are not verifying in and initiating the actions. Okay, the non-identification of external communication activities, specifically those related to primary producer. Now, in a poultry industry or the animal meat industry, the issues with respect to antibiotics, pesticide, mycotoxin has to be identified, and then those need to be communicated to the primary producer. Even in fresh produce and vegetables, the growers need to be identified. Then they need to be approved. They need to be trained on which type of pesticides has to be used and what is the time when they should use it, okay, when they should not use it, even the antibiotics, the proper withdrawal period. These trainings are required, with trainings as well as external communication are required. Okay, so these are system related challenges which industry faces. Now there are top 10 major non-conformities. Okay, now this is one of the reference source I it from SQ, safe quality food. That is again one of the standard which I explained earlier. So food fraud program is one of the area which is again it's related to non-conformity. Either you not done. So anything which is coming up in a quality management system is either related to documentation, it will be related to infrastructure or practices. So you can remember it as a DIP. Okay, document, infrastructure, and practices. So these are the areas mainly these NCs will come. Okay, so food fraud program, either it is documentation or infrastructure or practices. Then environmental monitoring. Environmental monitoring is about swabbing, then listeria, testing, okay, salmonella testing. So all these are again it is coming up as a non-compliance. Cleaning, sanitation related issues. Okay, food safety plan event related. Cleaning, sanitation is practice related. Validation and effectiveness is again documentation and practice related. Internal audit is about the people who are trained. So in documentation and practices, food safety plan monitoring practices, okay, identified pest activity risk. This is again documentation related. Maintenance program documentation related. That is planning. Metal detector management. Metal detector management will cover documentation, infrastructure, and practices. Okay. So these are top 10 major non-conformities which are again challenge to the industry. Okay. Now essentially when we say the base is GMP, ASAP, okay, codex. So these, apart from this, there are requirements in India like food law, FSSAI, FSS Act 2006 and regulation 2011. So it is the most progressive regulation in India, which is helping industry for implementing the practices as per the compliance requirement. Okay, it is mentioned. Yesterday's topic was like very well explained by Dr. Amit. Uh, yeah, and it was like nicely correlated to the practices. Okay, then standards. So standard is ISO 20000 standard. There can be BRC. Okay, there are multiple standards so which you can consider the GFSS scheme. Then best practices. So best practices it is at top. Now industry, what industry needs, the best practices has to be followed by the organizations through learning and meeting those having the implemented certain initiatives which we are talking which are being discussed in a few slides ahead. Okay. Now opportunities. So coming to opportunities, it's clearly a requirement. Now this is slightly we might go away from the topic, but this is required to understand that quality culture starts from home. Okay, there is an emotional quality attached to it, functional quality attached to it, the product characteristic which we, we intend. Okay, when I go to a particular tea shop, so what I need a tea which is nicely made, it is nicely served, and the serving person and the shop where I go has to be clean enough. There should not be flies. Okay, So there is something attached, and even the brand. Now, when we say some brand is there, then I am emotionally attached to it. Okay, but that doesn't work. Okay, emotional quality if you are not getting the right product, and the product has also a functional quality. Okay, so for industry now need is for quantification of emotional quality and functional quality to deliver consistently best product with pre-shipping compliance. Okay, and hence we need to learn this thing from home. You start with the tea. Okay, that will help you to relate. So if you don't get a good tea, then you can see you are first consumer at home, and then you go to the plant, you make the product, which is again consumer don't like it. You just relate it. Okay, so innovation and early management approach is important in whatever things are being done under quality management. Now, right action and right time is equal to early management approach. Okay, so the inclusion of behavioral approaches, lean management, scientific study to be adopted by the organization in day to day while delivering the product to the consumer in any country. Okay, it is not like we are exporting means that has to be best quality, or we are selling it in India. It is like, okay, we Indian people can eat anything. No, Indian people also need to be served, and the product has to be of best quality. Okay, so similarly, the approaches which we can take as a quality clinic, it is an excellent approach to tackle the complaints much in advance by reviewing the product quality internally. Okay, so you can check these complaints can come just like we go to the doctor preventive checkup. You go to the expert team and identify that these complaints are like potential complaints. What we can do? Okay, so you can take a medicine for that. That means you can put some control measure, and you can prevent it happening. So even the product development phase, there are multiple phases. Okay, so I'm not going to go into detail, but what I want to say here is you need to develop a product considering all aspects related to quality management. If it is a pH adjustment required, if it is a salt adjustment required to prevent salmonella, that has to be done. Okay, at at the development stage. Okay, so you need to devise or develop the product under quality management uh, concept, where you consider that there is a problem of salmonella which might be an issue to the consumer. So you make a product where there is no chance of salmonella. Okay, this is just an example I quoted. You can just relate and just think it critically. Okay, now digitization, coming to an era of digitization. Now we are talking about various uh, quality management tools. Okay, there was a challenge of tools. Now the tools are available. Okay, Internet of Things, where you can even your machine can tell when it is going to have breakdown. Okay, no need to like see that there is a maintenance required. So machine will tell. Okay, so these kind of things are to be adopted by the organizations to continually improve and ensure the food product of best quality to the consumer. Okay, even the areas where blockchain technology from grower to retailer, entire traceability to gain consumer trust. See, gaining consumer trust is very much important in food. Uh, in any case, see, it is not about only food, but in any case, gaining consumer trust is important. When consumer sees it, now you take an example of the chicken sold in India. Okay, so earlier we used to, in my case, okay, I used to go with my father to bring a chicken. It was mostly on Sundays. Okay, so I used to go with him, and then he used to go to 2 3 shops and then check which is the best. And best means that time and now I realize that we were buying the chicken which was totally unhygienic. Okay, so this brings me to a level now that 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 the companies like the retail companies, e-commerce companies, which I can name it few, like Licious, the Fresh to Home. Now I'm buying chicken from those companies because these are hygienically made, and I trust. Okay, now the even going to the shop at roadside, slaughter or meat shop is like becoming a challenge for me also. Even my daughter also says no, it is not that good. Okay, so we buy online. So hygienic requirement has been, so that is the trust we need to build through quality management system which we have. Okay, so blockchain technology will ensure the traceability in entire food chain from grower, processor, supplier, manufacturer, and there can be a reduction in evidences, or you can say reduction of food frauds. Okay. So what are the some of areas which even I can just share that we should work on the control on product temperature throughout the process, because if we consider meat, the product temperature is of utmost important. The actions like smart temperature sensors to auto capture room temperature and generate alarm in real time if temperature goes out of defined space. Artificial intelligence software based cameras, where cameras continuously monitor activity. Now you can see the person dependent to the system system, like the cameras will continuously monitor activities of staff working on shop floor, even hand washing. So uh, there are areas now where if even if you put sensor based hand wash, give them soap, people will not wash hands, so that is not helpful for the quality management. Okay, so making sure that uh, these are these are the technologies which will help to identify the suspicious behavior with reference to food safety, then um, which is like compared with already a target behavior, that this is what we expect from a food handler, and if he's not following that practices, there will be alarm generated, or there will be a snapshot which is sent to his supervisor. Okay, so AI-based smart softwares, then any abnormal activities, if observed, to be reported immediately in real time can be done. Okay, real-time monitoring of product quality specifications, like key performance indicator, like data of product quality assurance specs with respect to product target weight. Even I was a trainee initially at Vista, so I was um, it's taking the sample every 30 minutes. Okay, every 30 minutes to check the temperature, check the weight, then check the pickup. Okay, check the shape, size. Okay, and that was continuously like 30 minutes reading. Okay, now it has been reduced, but as the confidence increases, we reduce the sampling. So this has been now continuously recorded in cloud-based software system, can be done. Okay, so regularly it is getting updated, and there is a display KPI boards where any variance in specification data observed is maintained. Okay. Yeah, just now digitization topics of food safety and quality system. What we can do, we can have certain systems under quality management, like asset management. Asset management is about creating a geofence, and if any new equipment is coming in, there is a requirement of verification of that equipment for hygienic design. Okay, so hygienic designing is about identifying the equipment which meets the criteria or not with food safety. So there is a asset management which can be done. Even some equipment is going outside, that can also be tracked. Okay, so this can be also adopted by the organizations. Then there are online QC tools. Okay, that measures your even if you consider weight, so that will measure your weight, and then give you the data at the end of the day. Or you can say it can be a online data, online CP, process capability and process capability index, whether process is capable or not. So that can be also uh, taken up by the organization to improve quality. So one of the example I'll share, I have undergone this training, best practices sharing, which was last year, where we learned about various best practices across industry, government organizations. So this was like Foodwatch Connect. It was a Dubai municipality initiative. It is a digital identity. There is no there is zero paperwork. Okay. So why I'm telling you this? This is what quality management has to consider now, so that there are decisions which are data-driven decisions. Okay. We should not be like it's not a person dependent. It's a data-driven decision. And we can also have end-to-end traceability. We can identify role of person in charge, okay, equipment check, food delivery, food permit. So entirely we can have this type of system in quality management. Okay, even in FSSAI, you can see how it is becoming useful and easier day by day. So towards paperless licensing procedure. So I know the era where it is like meat food product order. I used to go to the officer and with the label and take his signature, and then once he approves it, then we used to consider that as a final product packing. Okay, so now this has been eliminated. Licensing processes are easier now. You can track your application. So there are multiple advantages of digitization. Okay, so digitization is one of the area which you should look where sensors, then automation, then testing and evaluation, stakeholders and consumer engagement is. These are important topics under quality management where you can identify and grade with food through optical sensors, like example sorting of grains based on size, color, sorting of fruits such as apple on the basis of size or quality. Okay, and also using spectrographic techniques and meat inspection. There are areas where we have seen that there is a technology where you can identify the worms in the lettuce like hyperspectral imaging. Okay, we can identify them easily identified through a naked eye, okay, or the person. Automation. Automations are again cost efficient. It will increase efficiency with involvement of less manpower. It's like dependence on person. Majority the word I will use at dependence on person. Okay. Testing and evaluation. Advantage such as paperless results, error-free, centralized lab system can be an approach. Okay, all advanced microbiological analysis is digitized now. So even the Mumbai Veterinary College, which I have seen that there is a equipment which can now identify multiple organisms through single analysis. Okay, stakeholders and consumer engagement is important. Now we need to make sure the consumer is engaged. So you can see, look at some of the initiative by FSSA like Eat Right India, hygiene rating portal. Okay, there are other initiatives which you can take like scanning barcode systems in quality management. This is very important. Now food fraud, motivated adulteration, as supply chain is becoming complex, there are multiple issues like there is the vulnerability is increased. The milk, which is mostly adulterated, uh, the commodity, so majority it is easy to adulterate. Okay, either by water, either by some other additives, which cannot be like detected easily. Okay, so some of them, but you can always put up system like artificial intelligence in food fraud detection. There is a database worldwide for food fraud cases which you can connect under quality management. Ultimately objective consumer trust. Okay, so whichever system you are following now, gone are the days where we used to say that I maintain this certification, but certification is not enough. Okay, so there is a consumer trust to be built upon. Okay, so that consumer itself take a decision to buy the product. Okay, it is an informed choice. So food fraud, again, some of the areas you can look at. There are mobile devices. You can provide tools. Now again, providing tools. We are nothing without tools. Remember. The vehicle. Okay, so we can now travel at a 60 kilometer to 80-kilometer speed, even more than that. Even if we go to the go and travel through flight, it will be like 600 to 800 kilometer per hour. So this is again, uh, you cannot make consistently best product without having best quality assurance tools and best testing facilities. Okay. So there are technologies which are coming up, which are gaining momentum, like e-tongue and e-nose. Okay. Now sensory perception is different. If I have good test and my test buds are I just maintain them good or develop, it is helping me to identify the product. Okay, so enos is another area which is also a sensory tool where you can identify certain aspects of sensory, okay, of the product. Testing laboratories, again, under quality management, testing laboratories play important role. With we can have this with high-end equipment. This again can be adopted through collaboration. Now, industry academia collaboration is one of the area where you should, as an industry, you should look at, because we say always say theory and practical. Okay, theory is 80%. Even I was taught by Jende sir. Even this sir is my senior, so they have taught us like theory, okay, and even practical also. So which gains the more mark? It's like theory 80%, okay, and 20% is practical. So considering that, there is to be, we need to go back to the academia and collaborate with them under quality management, so that we can either utilize the facility adopted by them to make a product which is meeting the consumer requirement, okay, quality aspects, compliance, okay. And government also should see, this is one of the area which is being suggested, like partnering relationship amongst best laboratory for sending the sample to utilize the state of art infrastructure. So we can always look at collaboration. There can be a digital laboratory where you can get. So blockchain, I explained. So blockchain technology, which is given Newton in food supply chain and food traceability, it is enhancing and expediting the food recall processes. Companies started introducing blockchain technology to speed up identification and research method. Okay. So it is, again, you can see blockchain is about consumer. Okay. It has traceability. Then there are many advantages like building trust, competitive edge. Okay, it's a promising technology, and we can address majority of the issues related to food, like foodborne illnesses, food fraud issues, regulatory requirement through a digital transparent system. Apart from this, what we can adopt under quality management is total productive maintenance, uh, which has a goal of zero unplanned failures, zero product defects, zero accident. And this is an umbrella initiative, so there are multiple stakeholders involved. It is a self-directed maintenance program, okay, and it helps in improving the productivity by maximizing the production, machine availability, and performance with preventive and routine maintenance. Now, total productive maintenance has goal of zero unplanned failures, zero product defects, accidents, okay, and it helps in reducing equipment breakdown. The way of life now, okay. We coming to the current scenario, as there is a growing demand for certain products, online deliveries are improving, they are increasing. So we need to also meet that pace. So even there has to be less the quality defects, increase productivity, reduce accidents, and it will foster the teamwork. Now, what are that food safety culture, rapid testing, food for prevention and identification, digitization. So I have touched base upon. So just mix this can be new quality management to look at quality management. These are the areas we should think upon critically. Okay, we need to also prioritize in quality management. Which are the areas we need to prioritize, like people, purpose, and proactivity. Okay, so top-down approach is there, but I would again say that the people at shop floor, they should be aware. Okay, so their involvement is important. Awareness level and commitment is important. Okay, knowing what need to be done is important, and the preventive approach. So involvement. Okay, so all any process involvement is important. So roadmap for total quality management. So rapid test like pathogen residue analysis, food fraud analysis, IoT, blockchain, traceability, and digitization of quality management. Okay, so use of predictive technology where there can be a process failures which need to identify. Analytical tools are there. Artificial intelligence can be also adopted for this quality management. Now coming to people issue or people challenge, culture setting practices are very much important. So appropriate behavior to meet the quality management requirement is important. Bonding is important, okay, because this change is not uh, rapid change, it is slow change. So employee need to be connected to bring sustainable change. Otherwise, nothing will work, okay, or it will be for time being and then it will again go back to same situation. Motivating individual is important, okay. assert solutions like positive solution to the issues in the organization. As a QA person, when we give solution, it is going to help production quality, production maintenance. Okay, so we as a quality assurance professional should always look at giving solutions. Okay, positive solutions to the issues. So structured teamwork and excellence, these are again areas you need to look at. There has to be a clear directions, benchmarking of the plans, enable teams to appropriate tools and techniques, a strong involved team structure to drive the change. Okay, matters most. It's important. So cross-functional projects in quality management, you can always think of giving cross-functional project like use of AI for decision making, use of artificial intelligence in new product development, adapting TPM, and then cost of quality, digitization project. So these are again under quality management, you can adopt those improvement initiatives. Employment in employee involvement. See, majority of the organizations employees are disengaged. Even they don't know what need to be done. Okay, so involvement is important, and you can adopt the programs like train the trainer programs, body system programs, quality circles, Kaizen initiatives, which is again a Japanese concept, which we can adopt to improve quality. Then dissemination of training and assessing the effectiveness is important, like skill, competency, gap analysis, imparting training, assessing effectiveness, restrain or refresher training. Best in class comparison is important in quality management, where plant to plant, like companies and other plants can compare about best practices, plant to country specific, historical also can be you can see how the plant has improved. So that example can give insight to the new team member. Plant to international plant, also digital visits are and now being carried out for various plants across world. So to summarize, the food safety and quality culture with mindset of adoption of change is a key aspect for an organization to sustain in global market. The competitive advantage result of strategies or steps adopted to enhance the capability to stay ahead in the market. Okay, quality, food safety, authenticity, legality are key factors for the food industry, which is a global market now. Organization must establish competitive strategies and develop an internal structure which is least resistance to change and proactive in implementation. The degree of maturity is directly proportional to the steps taken by the organization to set example for food industry. See, we can always stay ahead by setting up some example. Organizational leadership, which is again each standard which we are adopting now, the standard is talking about leadership. So organizational leadership must be in continual search of the new tools, technologies, learning to improve the quality of infrastructure, practices, documentation, which will help industry to produce food product to ensure consumer experience, safety, and sustainability. So thank you. Now session is open. Thank you, sir.
Hello?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
hope speed was good.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Very excellent and informative presentation, Dr. Sidhu. Now, questions from the participants, please.
Sir, my question is, hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, my question is, which standard we are implementing in India? Uh, which which one?
Okay. See, majority the industries which are adopting standard is ISO 22000 and ISO 20000
ISO 2000.
22000. Okay, which is again in combination of ISO 20002, which is also called as a FSSC 20000 now. So this is a majority because it is a GFSI and globally recognized standard. Some of the companies which are exporting, they adopt BRC, British Retail Consortium. This is a standard again which is adopted by GFSI, Global Food Safety Initiative. So
No.
these
For
are-
regarding sir dairy product, which standard is better one?
see, you can go now. If you are exporting, you should adopt BRC. If you are not exporting, then FSSC 20,000 is fine.
Okay, we have to follow their standard for exporting.
See, standard is global standard. Okay, it is made considering not only dairy industry but considering food industry. Okay, entirely. So in totality, if you see, the standards are designed in a way that the food industry can adopt it and make their own system based on that standard. Okay, clear?
O- Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, my another question is, if we are purchasing one product, they are mentioning that this is a ISO 22,000 to something. This is the standard, but I am not satisfied with this product.
Uh,
And if I want to do testing of that product, where I go
see,
regarding this?
see
How
this. Yeah, these standards. Yeah. I will just allow you to complete your question. Yeah. Yeah, just complete your question.
uh, what where I go for a complaint against this product, and what will be the punishment for that company? Any
Okay.
punishment?
See, when we adopt this standard, these are voluntary standards. Okay, it is not going to punish you because it is not the law, but under requirements of regulation of that particular country or the country India specific regulation, that there are provisions under the punishment and penalties. Okay, so when we talk about standards, these standards are tools. These tools are, so always you cannot blame the tool if you are not implementing it fully. Okay, so that is the reason adoption of these standards thoroughly and ensuring that you are continually improve is important. It is not a zero defect system. Okay, it is not a foolproof. You can say it is not a zero. You will get, like today you implement the standards and you will get uh, the excellence result. Okay, so even in case of the complaints, you need to adopt certain why these complaints are. So there is a root cause analysis for that, and you can always look at the ways of preventing it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Next, any other participants, please? You can ask.
Oh. Siddheswar sir, good morning. My name is Arif. I'm from Pen Frozen Foods Private Limited.
Yes, good
Sir,
morning.
I have two questions. What are the documentation part which we can completely make it on computer, which we can fill up on computer so that we can minimize paperwork, and which are the documents we can use it on runtime, which can be printed out. Okay, and my another question is, um, as you said that microbiological analysis digitalized now, but is it FSSAI? Thank you, sir.
Yeah. See, we need to understand that going paperless in quality management 100% is possible. Okay, so from receiving to dispatch of goods or product, we can entirely adopt the online entries. Okay, and this will also, you can see at real time anywhere in world. Okay, that can happen. So coming to the point where you asked me which documents can be digitized. So I told about blockchain technology. Entire chain can be it's online. So we call it as a digitization. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So two more questions, please, because I have to leave for another.
Dr. Vivek, can you read?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, question is there difference between quality management system
Quality management,
and FS system?
yeah. See, quality management system can be adopted by any organization. It is not only food. Okay, you can it's a tool manufacturing. It can be any engineering company. It can be college also. May technical institute or educational institute. They can adopt QMS. Okay, food safety management system is specific to food. That is a major difference. Okay, and the clauses of QMS can be, so even you can implement QMS in food safety management system nowadays. That's the reason ISO 9001 2015 is a quality management system and ISO 20000 is a food safety management system. So both are now aligned. That is a high level structure. Now all the standards are becoming in a similar, like clauses are similar, but we can always look at which standard has to be adopted. So that is a major difference. Okay, yeah, one more question.
Thank you, sir. Sir, actually, one question is there. Please give an example of quality food with details.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, just can you repeat the question?
Sir, one of the participants is asking, please give an example of quality food with details.
Give an example of quality food with details. See, quality is what? Quality
Food, actually, he's asking.
Quality. I explained the definition that quality is a inherent characteristic which satisfied implied requirement as well as some of the requirement which are explicitly mentioned by that consumer. Okay, so you go to the example which I told you. They go to the shop, you ask that I need tea with less sugar. Okay, so that you have explicitly mentioned that this sugar has to be less. Okay, but other needs which are implied, that it has to be hygienic, it should be without hair, or it should be, that is understood. Okay, so quality is that. So for any food, there are some implied need and some needs which are explicit. So quality can be the product should not be stale. Product should not contain, suppose meat product, so it should not contain antibiotic. It should not contain some hazardous compound, or it should not contain bacteria. Okay, pathogens which will be hazardous to human. So that is the thing. So you can consider quality, which is a like wide aspects related to a product. Okay. It can be sometimes shape also. It can sometimes the uh, nutritional aspects of it. Okay, so it's an inherent characteristic of an product which consumer uh, is getting satisfied by either eating it or by purchasing it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
My question, one question is, sir, please. Sir, by implementing all these standard, due to packed food, persons are suffering from many diseases. Why?
Anything which is in excess is a problem. Okay, that doesn't mean that
Excessive.
food is always, yeah, anything which is in excess. Now we are not only getting one food product as a packed commodity. Now we can check in our house, there are multiple product which are with certain now suppose there is one additive which is to be consumed at particular level and we are consuming it, which is like at higher excess, like we had it twice or thrice in a day. Okay, so that will be a problem. Even though the food industry is taking care of multiple aspects of residues at raw material level, finished good, and this is in compliance, but anything in excess is a problem. Okay, and that is how it is not to blame the product. It is us which we need to target. We need to look at nutritional aspects of it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Vaidya sir, please unmute your.
Why this voice is not coming?
So thank you very much, Dr. Siddheswar Rinde. You have very well, wonderful presentation you have given. And in all the aspects of quality management systems in production of food products, their challenges and opportunities, you have explained in a wonderful manner. Thank you so much for your valuable time. And you have answered all the questions whichever asked from the participants. Thank you so much for your miss time. Now, today we have rather eminent speaker, my teacher, my advisor, Dr. Kiran Bilegavkar sir. So, sir is working as principal scientist and station in charge at Training and Education Center, IVRI Center, College of Agricultural Campus, Shivaji Nagar, Pune. And sir will deliver his topic on microbial standards for foods of animal origin. So now I request Dr. R.J. Jhende sir to give a brief introduction about the respected Dr. Kiran Bilegavkar sir. Everybody knows about him, but still I request Jhende sir, please give introduction about our Dr. Kiran Bilegavkar sir, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vaidya. Yes, Dr. Kiran, he knows everybody is, I think, in the hall today. I think 191 people joined for the 2 days function. So I have a great privilege to introduce my respected guru, Dr. Kiran Bilegavkar sir. He is the principal scientist and the station in charge, Training and Education Center, ICR IVRI, College of Agriculture Campus, Shivaji Nagar, Pune. In under his leadership, the center has been started by the IVRI to deliver what are the things which are developed and standardized at IVRI campuses to the farmers, the stakeholders, so that the technologies what are the developed there, so that can be directly used by the farmers for their adaptation. So, Dr. Bilegavkar sir, he has passed out from our college. He has done his master degree here in Bombay College, and did his PhD, and he has served in IVRI campus for I think more than 25 years. And his main research area is on food safety and the zoonotic diseases, development of diagnostics and the prevalence of foodborne pathogens, zoonotic disease, food preservation, growth, inhibition of the pathogens, meat adulteration. Okay, and he has published so far about 125 international and national journals of repute. And at his credit, there are two patents are also there, and he has presented lead papers in the various national and international journals, about 70 lead papers. At his credit, there are 4 books are there, and there are more than 9 book chapters published in the various books, and 148 abstract and technical presentations in national and international symposia he has presented. He has guided about 9 PhD students and 14 master of the PG degree students, and he has been a resource person, working as a resource person for the various international and national committees on the food aspect. So he is one of the member from the India on International Commission on the Microbiological Specification for Foods, that is ICMSF, since 2011. And he's also worked as a member e-working group on the Codex Committee on Residues of the Veterinary Drugs in Foods, then work as a member of the e-working group of Codex Committee on Food Hygiene on the draft guidelines for the control of the non-typhoid salmonella species in beef and pork meat. He is also the one of the instrumental in developing certain standards of epizootic since its inception in 2006, and he is initially also work in developing work in the task groups for developing the standards and all this. And currently, he is on 3 scientific panels. The panel number 1 is on the meat and meat product. Second, that is on the scientific panel of the analysis and sampling, and also he on committee for scrutinization of the rapid analytical food testing kits or the equipments or the method applications which are mainly developed across the country by the different stakeholders. So he's one of the member in that on the FSSI. He also on the scientific panels of the FSSI from 2009 to 13 on the pesticides and antibiotic residues, and also on the scientific panel on the biological hazards from the 13 to 2020. And he has also worked on the development of the standards for the meat and meat product from 2013 to 15. So he has a well versed with what are the food standards available in our country for animal origin food. He has, besides that, also he has having a working experience on the different committees of the BIS, the Bureau of Indian Standards, that is FAD 15, that is food hygiene, safety management, and other systems. Then FAD 16, that is food grade, starch, and the ready-to-eat foods, and on the food hygiene and food microbiology. So, and sir is that is why we have chosen the right person to deliver the talk on the microbiological food standards for the animal origin food. So I invite respected Dr. K. Maligapkar sir to deliver the topic of microbial standards for the foods of animal origin. Dr. Maligapkar sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Jande, for a nice introduction, and thank you all the organizing committee, organizing team for inviting me for this training program. As usual, it's a pleasure for me to be interacting with all the participants. I think it's a huge number. It's almost 192 I could see here. And can I just know what all type of participants, group of participants you have from industry or from, yeah.
Yes, sir, definitely. These are the, sir, mainly the industry people from the various slaughterhouses across the country. Okay. And number two, the PhD and PhD students. And number three is the faculties from our veterinary colleges, not only from OPSO, but from the different veterinary colleges in India.
Okay, so thank you. It's a diverse population. Some are from scientific backgrounds, some are from industry backgrounds, some are just budding scientists, young professionals, or young students, scholars. So my task becomes very difficult now. The topic, which is a very complex topic, I would like to try. I'll try to make it a little simpler and see if I can manage it or not. But it's a big topic. I'll try to just finish it as per the given time. Just a minute, let me start sharing. So is it now visible? Is it okay? Everyone can see it now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's very.
Yes. Okay. So microbial standards for foods of animal origin has been the topic given to me by the organizing team. Just a second, let it load properly so that the slides move. Okay, so they are now okay. So what I would like to tell during these few minutes or about 45 minutes down the line would be like introduction to microbiological food safety. Many of you know it. Some of the key facts and figures I would be telling. Then what are the important microbes, particularly in relation to foods of animal origin? Then coming to the actual how food safety standards authority or standards are set for microbiology, and then what are the current regulations in India for meat product, milk product. So these are the important points which I will be touching. You know that our livestock sector is playing a very, very important role in the food safety, in food security of India. We are currently the fastest growing sector amongst agriculture sector, and our contribution to gross value addition is quite substantial, and currently it is growing at a very high rate, almost 8.5 or 8.25 rate percentage. It's growing annually. But as the food of animal origin share in our daily food is increasing, the risk of foodborne infections or foodborne outbreaks, they are also increasing because it's a high risk food. It supports growth of microorganisms, and then there are all the problems of residues of antibiotics and so on and so forth. So the food safety also has to be taken care as our share of foods of animal origin is increasing. Among different food safety hazards which are coming through the foods of animal origin, you know that there are drug residues, there are pesticide residues, then microbiological hazards, then there are heavy metals and toxins and some other contaminants. Genetically modified foods, fortunately, in foods of animal origin, it is still not there. Allergens is one of the major problem in foods of animal origin, but we are not looking at it right now. Our main focus would be the microbial hazards, and which is one of the key and important aspects in the food safety. Globally, we are getting a large number of foodborne diseases. You know, every 1 in 10 person they fall ill, and almost 4.5 lakh deaths are annually occurring. These are some of the global numbers of foodborne illnesses. About 60 crore people they get affected every year. In our southeastern region, Asian region, almost 12.5 crore people they get affected every year. And when you see share of different diseases, you can see here diarrheal agents, they constitute one of the most important thing in both the Southeast Asian region as well as in global scenario, followed by the invasive infection. And the chemical food safety constitutes very meager, although it catches attention of media, all the pesticide, antibiotic residues, but its effect is very slow and it's a long-term effect. Therefore, we do not get to know exactly whether it is caused by a certain ailment is caused by this chemical or that chemical. There are certain experimentations which have proven it, but exactly the numbers we cannot correlate. But for case of microbes, it's an acute, immediate effect, so we can easily guess the numbers or we can easily identify the disease with all the microbes. In India, the position is somewhat in the middle. We are in the middle of the stake, and then we are getting almost about, say, roughly 11 crore cases. When we convert the cases per thousand, per 1 lakh people to our population, it's about 11 crores. So among Southeast Asian regions, out of 12 crores, we are the one who having almost more than 90% cases. But actual accurate estimates, which have been calculated very recently by ILRI, uh, they suggest that we are getting almost more than 3 billion cases annually, amounting to huge losses. Important microbes which are of concern, we all know that there can be viruses, there can be bacteria, parasites, fungi, and all those things. And I'll just list them out, very important ones. I'm not going into details of them, just touching upon those points. Bacteria, we know that foods of animal origin, those which are here shown in the red color, they are mostly associated with foods of animal origin like Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, particularly Virotox, or sorry, 015787, then Campylobacter with poultry, and all these things. Yersinia enterocolitica also is one of the species which is associated with pork, but in India, it's not of much importance. Among viruses, majority of viruses, they are fecal origin route, but foods of animal origin, they are rarely seen to be implicated. Mostly plant, vegetable, or the seafoods, they are implicated in the outbreaks. Only hepatitis E, which is going through pigs, is one of the important pathogens which is associated as a zoonosis, and animal origin food is associated with it. Among parasites, there are several parasites, but again, detection, then assigning the disease to parasite and all those investigations, they are lacking in India. So some of the parasites, although they get transmitted, their prevalence, of course, is less. Trichinella in India is less. And tinea doesn't go more from the meat, rather it goes from particularly cysticercosis. That is one of the important ailment in human being in India, which goes through the vegetables or contaminated foods with the water, which is contaminated with the fecal material. Among these different viruses, bacteria, which are more important? The more important, you can see here globally, it's the bacterial pathogens which are more important. Same is thing with our Southeastern Asian region, that is Indian subcontinent. Then comes viruses, and then very less about the helminths or other parasites. Uh, Same thing is in case of global deaths also. So in deaths also, bacterial pathogens, they account for the large number of deaths, particularly Salmonella and Campylobacter globally. In India also, there are several E. coli as well as Salmonella. They cause a lot of uh, deaths. What is that? What has come requesting annotate the shared content? Okay. So when you go and see bacterial pathogens, now which are the most important bacterial pathogens? Globally, it's a Campylobacter. Even in case of Southeastern Asian region, it's a Campylobacter which is important. Shigella dysentery is very important in case of several developing countries. Then E. coli, when you combine together enterotoxigenic, enteropathogenic, virotoxic, and all those things, it also accounts to be one of the major pathogens along with the typhoidal as well as non-typhoidal salmonella. So these are important pathogens which our context also, it's the same thing. And when we consider foods as a vehicle, again, foods of animal origin for bacterial pathogens, they are one of the most important and key contributors for the outbreaks. Similarly, when you consider all agents, considering chemical, parasitic, viral, even then also the animal origin food, they are very important. There are certain bacteria and food combinations which are very common globally. And again, you can see here the red ones, the bacterial pathogens which are associated with the foods of animal origin. Campylobacter, mostly it is associated with chicken, salmonella, with again poultry, as well as certain other food items. Then, as I have already told you, Aztecs, they are mostly associated with beef, Listeria monocytogenes with meat and milk product, Staph aureus, it's a dairy product. So most of these microbes, they are associated with foods of animal origin. So it's very important to control these foods of animal origin and protect the consumers. How do we protect consumers? Nationally, government system, it's a food control system which is governed by regulator, government regulator. In our case, it's a Food Safety and Standard Authority of India. There is a responsibility of industry as well. Already my previous speaker has told you about the quality management and food safety management systems industry they take into consideration. As well as a consumer, we also have a responsibility of hygienic handling, proper cooking, proper eating, and all those things. But as my topic is mainly dealing with the food standards, so I'll go and focus only on the government sector. One of the key and important food safety management aspects of government sector is the setting and enforcing the safety standards, be it microbial standard, be it chemical standards. So what is the standard? Standard is nothing but a microbiological or chemical criteria which is a part of law, which is a part of regulation. It's a mandatory enforceable criteria. So whenever there is a standard, sorry, whenever there is a standard set, it is enforceable, and all food business operators, they have to strictly maintain these standards. Uh, Focusing on the microbiological criteria, what is microbiological criteria? It's nothing but a management metric which is indicative of acceptability of food. When we apply this microbiological criteria to any food for food safety control, after your analysis, testing, everything, you get an idea about whether this food is acceptable or not. That is what microbiological criteria means. Again, microbiological criteria, there are different terms which are very frequently used, and they are very much confused by all of the people. The first is standard. I have already told you microbiological standard is a part of law, ordinance or regulation. It's a mandatory criteria. Then there are microbiological guidelines. Guidelines name itself suggests that it is a guideline. It's an advisory criteria. Some food operators will tell that, okay, these are our advice during process control. This should be met. Microbiological limit should be this, that, whatever it may be. So these are advisory, or certain Bombay Veterinary College or IVRI tells that these are microbiological criteria which should be essential for the food safety. So those which are coming through some academic body, somebody, they are kind of advisory criteria. Whereas microbiological specifications, again, they have some kind of a binding, between whom it's an agreement between buyer and supplier. As a meat product manufacturer, some sausage manufacturer, I am getting meat from certain slaughterhouse or certain agency. I would have a agreement with that seller or supplier of meat that I would require certain specifications of microbes when that meat is supplied, or some other ingredient which is supplied by some other ingredient like spices or maybe condiments. So I will have certain microbiological specifications which are assigned to that supplier, and that supplier has binding that he will supply material which meets those specifications. So this is between the buyer and seller. Particularly, it's applicable in the industrial scenario. Then what are the basic principles how these standards are set? And as per the Codex Alimentarius Commission 2013, they have said that there has to be a purpose for microbiological criteria. That purpose can be, as I have told you, it can be a standard, that is regulatory aspect, or it can be a specification, that is between buyer and seller, the agreement. So there should be a purpose for microbiological criteria. One, there should be a food for which it is applicable. It may be raw meat, it may be spices, it may be milk, it may be any product to which this microbiological criteria should apply. Then there has to be a point at which this, during the food supply chain, this microbiological criteria should apply. Like food safety criteria, salmonella, it should not be present throughout the consumption, throughout the shelf life of food. So that means it is applicable at all points of food supply chain. Then a supplier is bound by a certain food specification. So at the level of supplier only that micro criteria will be applicable. So there are certain points at which this food safety criteria or microbiological criteria, they are applied. Most important thing, you have to specify for which microorganisms this microbiological criteria is applied, and why you have selected these microorganisms. You cannot have 100 microorganisms and set the limits that, okay, I want none of these pathogens. It's impracticable, it's costly, it's not possible, it's absurd. So you have to have a microorganism and selected reason for that, why you have selected this microorganism. We have already seen there are certain food pathogen combinations which are important. So accordingly, those microorganisms which are frequently associated with certain foods, they are selected. Then you have to set the limits. I'll come to how we set the limits and all those things in later slides. Then there has to be a sampling plan, that is number of samples to be selected, how much analytical units you need to collect, what is the acceptance number of those number of samples. Then there has to be analytical method. You must specify a certain analytical method, either it may be Bureau of Indian Standard method, ISI method, or ISO method, or any other European Union, US FDA, BAM, whatever it may be. This analytical method also need to be specified. Then when there is a deviation from these micro criteria, what is action to be taken? Whether food is to be rejected, whether hygiene is to be improved, whatever action has to be taken, that has to be implicitly mentioned. And as Codex says, the Codex which the already developed or already stipulated micro specification should be as far as possible used by the countries. So that is one of the principles of Codex because it is acceptable globally. So most of the countries should align their microbiological specifications with Codex criteria. And you have to have a clear-cut differentiation between the specifications, standards, and all those things so that there is no confusion. One of the basic aspect going before setting the standard is the risk assessment. So standard setting, the risk assessment plays a very important role. You know that risk analysis, they have three components. One is risk assessment, then second is the risk management and risk communication. So standard setting is basically a risk assessment. Then when the standards are set, government regulation notifies it, it becomes a part of risk management. So this is a policy management decision. So implementation becomes a risk management. And when it is communicated to all the stakeholders that these are the standards available, so this is the risk communication. So the risk has to be minimized through all these measures. So risk assessment becomes a major part in the setting of standards. So very important thing is we have to know about the hazard, microorganisms, all kinds of characterization, identification, everything to be known. Then comes the food, its exposure, how food behaves, whether it is cooked, whether it is having all kinds of spices, all kinds of preservatives which will reduce growth, how much is consumed by consumer, whether it's a to 250 ml of milk, whether it's 100 gram of meat per day, how much is consumed, all those things need to be known. And then only we can assess that certain number of populations may get affected by this. So this risk assessment forms the basis for this setting of micro standards. And what are all important things of the risk assessment which we consider? It's the most important is always it's a risk to public health. All kinds of severity of illness, likelihood of occurrence through food. So all kinds of hazard identification, characterizations, they come, as well as consumers. There are certain group of consumers which are highly prone, so we have to consider that. Then foods also, I have already told you that whether it is going to be cooked, whether it is going to be stored at room temperature, whether it is going to be stored at refrigeration temperature, whether numbers of organisms they are going to increase, decrease, and all those things. How much is the prevalence in a particular area? What is the distribution of organisms? What are the safety levels? Some organisms they may have few organisms can cause disease. In case of some, there is thousands or lakhs of organisms required to cause disease. So all kinds of these inputs they go into this, and then we have to arrive at certain statistical probability also through calculations, through distribution of organisms, and then we set the standards. So I have told you that microbial ecology is one of the important things, because microbes, they can grow, they can survive in a food, or there is a death, and all this depends on different characteristics, that is microorganism itself, food, storage, and all those things. And always safety, quality, it will depend on the numbers. I have told you that certain cases, very few organisms can cause disease, whereas in case of certain large number of organisms are required. So we have to specify these acceptable level, either for quality or for safety. So all these components, they were taken together, and International Commission on Microbiological Specification for Foods, they were the pioneers in all these things. And through risk-based approach, which I have already told you, that risk assessment, they have conceptualized sampling plans, cases, and these cases, different 15 cases, they are based on the risk-based approach. It was conceptualized in 1970s. Later on in 1980s, it was modified, and very recently, it has been thoroughly integrated with the statistical probability. So more the stringent management, whenever there is a greater risk, we need more stringent management and higher sampling plans also. So what is this? I have already told you: health risk, food conditions, and consumers. These were taken into consideration in these ICMSF 15 cases, that is severity of hazard, level of hazard, intended consumer population, and all those things. And I'll just briefly go through them. So microorganisms, they have been classified based on their severity. In relation to foodborne microorganisms, that is utility organism, that is total count and all those things, yeast and mold count, which usually tells us about the spoilage or shelf life. Then there are indicator organisms like E. coli, generic E. coli, Enterobacterus E. coli forms. They tell us about the hygiene measure. And as you go down, it becomes moderate hazard, serious hazard, severe hazard. So here you can see Chronobacter for infant, for people, or Listeria monocytogenes for some of the restricted population. They become very dangerous pathogens, severe hazard. It's a life-threatening. It can cause death. Also, E. coli 157 or botulinum toxin. So they are considered in the severe hazard, and accordingly, we need more stringent risk management metrics. And on the horizontal line, when we cook the food, there is a least risk. Organism levels will come down. So there will be less risk. If you are storing food at the frozen or dried condition, there will not be any growth, there will not be any death. So it will have a same moderate, whatever levels are there in the food, it will remain same. Whereas when you keep it in the room temperature for a long time, or for at refrigeration temperature for longer period, and there are psychrophilic organisms which may grow, the risk increases. So vertically down, as we have seen, hazard severity increases, risk increases. So horizontally, as you go towards right, risk increases. So this is the 15 case matrix which has been proposed by the ICMSF, with number of samples to be taken and the compliance numbers. So here you can see case number 1 to case number 15. Here 5 samples. This is a 3-class sampling plan. I will come to it later on, 3-class and 2-class. So from 5-3 to n number is 60. So 60 samples need to be tested for such a condition where there is a severe pathogen and there are likelihood that there are chances of increasing the pathogens. So distribution of organisms also play a very important role. Statistical probability has to be taken into consideration. We do not know exactly how pathogens are distributed. There are variety of patterns in which pathogens are distributed. I'll show you a few of the examples. This is International Life Science Institute, ILSI Europe. They have come out with this paper. There are different type of distribution: regular distribution, random high. You can see it here. Usually this type of distribution, in case of our meat or other product is not seen. Only in case of certain liquids, very high contamination, sometimes it is observed, but otherwise these type of distributions are not seen for microbes, particularly pathogens, Listeria monocytogenes or Salmonella. We usually get clustered distribution at one point. Say during the process of the slaughter, there is accidental handling by a certain person of one carcass, and then contamination will be there on that carcass. Accordingly, those cartons where that meat has gone will have organisms, or there is a random sporadic cases where there is a low distribution of microorganisms because of certain splash or certain things where there is a scattered distribution which is very low. These are common distribution. And what its impact when there is a regular random distribution which is high, even if you take one or two samples, you will be able to get the contamination, and you will be able to identify this lot is contaminated. But when there is a clustered or low contamination, you need to increase the number of samples to be tested so that you are confident that you are eliminating the pathogen from your food lot. So number of samples need to be increased. So as it's a very simple thing, higher the contamination, it's easy for detection with low number of samples also. As the levels go down, low levels, it's difficult to detect. So these things are to be considered while setting the standards. So when there is a very high prevalence, 50% of lot is contaminated, 50% boxes are contaminated. So if you pick up even two boxes out of that lot, so it will, there are chances of probability chances that you will get a contaminated unit and you will be able to detect organism 95% of the time. When there is a low prevalence, only one box is contaminated, only 1 in 100 food units contain organisms. So you need to increase samples to increase the probability of getting detected, and so that risk to public is reduced. All the statistical probability distribution has been given in the ICMSF. It can be calculated through this ICMSF sampling tool. And a certain table has already been given in one of the books of ICMSF. This particular is in relation to standard deviation of 0.08 and the detection at 95% of probability times, this will be detected. So you can see here an example of 3-class sampling plan. N is equal to 5, C is equal to 3, M 1000, and capital M 10,000. So here mean concentration of 5,000 will be required per gram of sample to be able to reject this lot. As you go down, it's a 5,500 organisms per gram. This sampling plan will be able to detect 33 organisms per gram. Now, stringency has increased. Even if a single cell is present in 55 grams, you will be able to detect. Even if a single cell is there in 300 grams, you'll be able to detect. Here you can see almost 2 kilogram. Even if a single organism is there, you will be able to detect. So accordingly, stringency increases. Coming to the safety standards in India, as I have told you, there is only one regulation now. All kinds of acts, orders, everything are now under Food Safety Standard Regulation 2011. There are still very much confusion in previous lectures, couple of weeks back and last month also. I got questions about Bureau of Indian Standard, AGMARK standards, whether they are enforceable. They are not enforceable. They are voluntary standards. Only when Food Safety and Standard Authority identifies them and they endorses these Bureau of Indian Standards or AGMARK standards, only then they become mandatory. There are certain food commodities where these BIS standards have been made mandatory, like packaged drinking water, infant foods, milk powders. So BIS standards which have been stipulated for these products, FSSAI has said that yes, these are applicable as per regulation. So they become now mandatory. Similar is the case with AgMark, certain oils and honey and all. These standards have been endorsed by FSSAI. So who does all these setting of standards? The scientific panel, they are the key persons who are doing all the setting of standards for any other thing. So different scientific panels are there. Then after recommendation, scientific committee ratifies it, and then finally authority, FSSA, Food Safety Standards Authority, endorses and notifies it. So among different scientific panel on biological hazards is the panel which is setting the standards for microbes for all commodities. Water, and all kinds of commodities. This is the panels which is setting the standards. After they set the standards, they go to specific respective panel just for endorsement and just for checking it and for finalization, and then it goes to scientific committee, and then through channel it is notified. In different, there are different sections of this FSSR 2011. These sections, among these sections, this is the key section where the microbial standards are there, that is food product standards and food additives. So in this section, we have a microbiological standards. There are certain other regulations also. So among microbial or hygiene requirement, what are the current regulations in FSSR? So the one very important for meat and meat product is the compulsorily application of food safety management system, that is FSMS ISO 22000. It is a must for every meat business operator. Then there has to be a prerequisite program, that is Schedule 4, that is good hygienic practices also they have to maintain. So it has to be applied throughout the food chain. So these, this is the Schedule 4. There are different parts for different food operators, like street vendors. There is a part 1 for milk and milk products, part 3 for slaughterhouse and meat processing. It's a part 4. So these are hygiene requirement to be followed by all, everyone. Then, as I have told you, it's a section on the food product standards and food additives, where these microbial standards are there. Very recently, a compendium has been uploaded by FSSAI, which was uploaded on the in the September month of 2020, which contains very recent regulations. But even then, it is not updated. After this, also there are certain regulations which have been notified, Gazette notifications. So you have to keep updating your Gazette notifications of FSSR to keep yourself updated. But now, as of now, you can download this compendium. These are certain old standards. Still, some of the places on FSSAI website, you will be seeing these standards. Do not get confused. These are now no longer in existence. These are old standards. They have been removed. Same thing is with the milk and milk products. Here you can see there is no number of samples, class 3 sampling plan, class 2 sampling plan, methods of analysis, nothing is given. So these are old standard. Now they are no longer applicable. So this is the Gazette notification which has come in 2016. This is for milk and milk product as well as meat and meat product. These specifications tells about the sampling plan, 2 class, 3 class. I'll elaborate on this, what is 2 class and what is 3 class. Then it elaborates analytical method. It also elaborates about the stage where these microbiological standards apply and action to be taken. So all things which have been stipulated by Codex, now they are integrated in our standards. So what is the 2-class sampling plan? 2-class sampling is 2 class attributes. That is simple. It's a accept or reject. You can accept it or you have to reject it sample. So just for an example here, n is equal to 5, c is equal to 0, and m is absence in 25 gram. This is a 2-class sampling plan. So it's only small m which is given. I'll just show you how to interpret it. This is the Codex standard for Listeria monocytogenes for foods that support growth of organism. N is equal to 5, C is equal to 0, and M is absence in 25 grams. So 5 samples to be tested. All samples should have less than M, that is absence of organism in 25 grams. Then only lot is accepted. If any of the sample showing positive, then it is rejected. There is another concentration based two class sampling plan. Here, this M changes to certain number like 100. That is given for Listeria monocytogenes in foods that does not support growth of organism. Since it is not there in case of foods of animal origin in our current standards, I am not going to tell you about that. Then three class attributes plan. So there are three attributes. What are those three attributes? Good or acceptable quality. Microorganisms, we do not know how they are distributed. So we have to give certain leverage to the food business operator, then storage and everything. So there is a certain amount of marginally acceptable quality which we allow it doesn't cause any safety hazard. So we allow certain organisms to be in certain extra numbers. And then there is unacceptable. So three attributes: good, marginally acceptable, and unacceptable. Here you can see there are two M's, small m and capital M. Example is N is equal to 5, C is equal to 2, small m is 1000 and capital M is 10,000. So certain amount of we allow certain organisms, certain number of samples to go beyond a certain limit. So what is that limit? So M. So how to interpret? All samples, if they are below this small m, it's all good. It's acceptable. There is no problem. All counts below 1000. If there are two organisms, that is C is equal to two samples rather, two samples are between 1000 and 10,000. Again, we allow it. There is no problem. It's acceptable. There are two samples which are between 1000 and 10,000. But when there is a single sample which is beyond 10,000, like here I have shown example 25,000, it's not acceptable. Or when there are three samples, 1, 2, and 3 samples which are between 1000 and 10,000, again three or more samples having count between the 1000 and 10,000, it's not acceptable. So it's a very simple interpretation. Through diagram you will be easily able to understand it. So what are the current regulations of our microbiological standards? There are tables given in appendix. Table 4A and 4B is for milk and milk product. 5A and 5B is for the meat and meat product. So what is A? A is a hygiene criteria where we have aerobic plate count, coliform, yeast and mold count, which doesn't have any safety issues, but it will have an implication on certain quality, or it should not go beyond certain limits, so that quality is affected. And safety criteria are the pathogens which are there. Different meat and meat product and milk product for which our standards are there. You can download it. I'm not going to go into details of those. Just for your understanding, I'll show you a few slides of them. Coming to these two, 5A and 5B, process hygiene criteria, that is the yeast and mold count or maybe total viable count, they are not for the rejection of the lot, but they are for the hygiene improvement by food business operator, and they are applicable only till the end of processing, that is in the factory. Till packaging only this is applicable. So if there is a product which is in the market, this standard process hygiene criteria is not applicable at that stage. Only at the end of processing, it is till the end of processing, this is applicable. Whereas food safety criteria, it is applicable throughout the food chain, right from the primary production till the end. And rejection of lot or that will depend on this. If they are not met, lot has to be rejected. if that lot is gone into the market, you have to recall that entire lot. So this is the snapshot from the Gazette notification. I have reproduced it, same thing below in a tabular form for the little bit clarity. You can see here stringency of sampling plan and numbers also increases. For fresh meat, it is 10 to the power 6, 1 into 10 to the power 6 to 5 into 10 to the power 6. Out of 5 samples, 3 samples can have count between these. Whereas as you go down for semi-cooked meat, it's between 10 to the power 4 to 10 to the power 5. And as you go down for cooked meat, it is between 10 to the power 3 to 10 to the power 4. So it changes depending on the condition of food and whether you are going to eat it without heating or all those things. Then test method has also been stipulated. You can see here the test method. Then analytical unit also, CFU per gram has also been stipulated. Similarly, for food safety criteria for meat, same thing, 25 gram analytical unit, these method of analysis, they have also been stipulated. Here you can see here it's a 2-class sampling plan. 5, not a single sample should have organism in 25 grams, 5 samples to be tested. So everything is clear in these tables. Same thing is there for milk product. There are several categories, almost 16 categories of milk and milk product. Aerobic plate count, 3-class sampling plan, everything is similar. 14 categories are there. Then test methods have also been stipulated for each of them. Similar is case of food safety criteria. Mostly it is a 2-class sampling plan. Absence, in case of certain sterilized product, there are certain other methods which have been stipulated, and microorganism presence or absence is not to be checked. So same I have made into tabular form here. The 3-class sampling plan for process hygiene criteria, 2-class sampling plan for food safety criteria. And below these tables, there are guidelines given for regulator. Regulator means food safety officers, how to collect, how many samples to be collected, and what is the decision to be taken, action to be taken on unsatisfactory result, stage where it is applicable, whether it's the end of processing, whether it's throughout shelf life. And in case of 5A, as I have told you, there is only check and improve hygiene by food business operators, and Schedule 4 has to be implemented. Whereas in case of 5B, it's a rejection of lot or recall of lot. So everything is given in the tables below that. Method also has been stipulated, which method to be used for aerobic plate count, coliform, and everything. The method, recent versions of methods, they have also been stipulated. So to finally conclude, as you have seen, microbiology, particularly in relation to food safety, is very important, and it will remain ever important global issue. It is not going to go down. It is ever important issue. Very many organisms are there which are important for foods of animal origin. You know them very well. As you have seen, setting of standards is not a very simple task. It's a very complex process. It's a dynamic process. As the number of organisms keep on changing, you get to know new organisms, you get to remove old organisms, or their ecology changes. You have to continuously update, continuously upgrade these standards. And all these selection of sampling plan limits, it's a very crucial because it has a huge public health implication. But you have to also consider that there should not be any food loss or economic loss. Unnecessarily keeping many organisms which are not important, which are not food safety issues, you are creating a huge hurdle for food business operators. So there has to be a balance between the public health as well as food industry. And all these regulatory decisions, they depend on all our sampling plans, standards, limits. So everything depends on these. So these are very, very crucial aspects. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for your excellent speech. In your talk, you have covered all these aspects of microbial standards of different foods of animal origin. It's a really very inspirational and motivational speech you have delivered, sir, to all the participants. And definitely, I assured you from your this speech, all the participants will be benefited. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And now the questions from the participants, please. Participants, you can ask.
Sir, one of the question
Yeah.
from one of the participant is asking, is there any microbiological specification standards available for swab, like hand swab and product contact surface,
No.
and air sampling microbiological specification?
No, there are no currently available national standards for surface parameters. Like usually, aerobic plate counts, they are considered to be checkpoints for the surface analysis, but as such, or hand swabs, there are no standards available. It's a export inspection council. They have stipulated certain limits for the products which are exported to different countries. But for national regulations, there are no standards available. ICMSF has recommended that less than 500 per square centimeter should be there for the counts. So regulations are not there.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question is there. One of the participant, he asked that which standard has to be used for ghee?
It's a FSSAI. They have already given standard for ghee for microbiology. In the table, it's there.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question is there. Any guidance for anaerobic organism?
Anaerobic organisms, you can see in both tables, there is a microbial standards which have been stipulated for Clostridium perfringens. It's not written as a Clostridium perfringens because methodology for analyzing Clostridium perfringens, which is enterotoxigenic, is little more cumbersome. So we usually have a sulfite reducing Clostridia as a guideline or standard which is given in the regulations. And most of the times, usually it is in the hygiene aspect, but in certain cases, like in case of meat product or certain milk products, infant formula, it has been indicated in the safety criteria as well, just to ensure that there is a public health safety because of anaerobic organisms. Because again, Clostridium botulinum measuring is very, very tedious and difficult. Many labs, or most of the labs, they do not have facilities for Clostridium botulinum toxin detection.
Thank you, sir. Sir, any other question? Anybody want to ask?
Yeah, participants, they can ask directly if they have some questions.
Sir, I don't think any question is there.
What are the standards for chicken meat?
It's the same thing. It's a meat and meat product. It also includes chicken meat. There is one extra provision for chicken meat, that is a Campylobacter, which is an additional requirement than other meat and meat product. You can go in the table 5B, food safety requirement. There you will see Campylobacter, which is applicable only for poultry, and all other standards for all meat products, including chicken, they are applicable.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think, Dr. Vaidya, there is no more question from the participant. And I thank profusely Dr. Bilegapkar sir for delivering the nice lecture and contributing to this seminar. and giving the latest information about what are the standards available in India and also the abroad for the foods of the animal origin, the microbiological standards. I thank sir for also accepting our invitation in very short period of time and delivering this today's topic. I think all the participants and they are got a knowledge about what standards are available through different agencies in our country and abroad. I think Dr. Sunil somewhere they're raising their hand.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm
Thank
saying
you.
thank you. Yeah. Very nice lecture, sir. Can I get your contact number?
Yeah, Dr.
Yeah, I will get
Hende,
from
you
Dr.
can,
Hende, sir.
yeah.
Yeah, I will get it.
You can take my contact number, email ID, everything, and I'll be available anytime you have any difficulty.
I'm based in Pune only, so I will meet you sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's in Shivaji Nagar. It's a central place for me. You can come any time.
Okay,
if
sir.
I'm available in Pune, I'll be happy to be interacting with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, participant, definitely you will get the PPTs, and we will share the. We are daily we are sharing the
How are you, sir? This is
videos.
Dr. Mohammed Ayub.
So all the participants, we will meet on Monday at 10:50 a.m. All of you are requested to join on Monday at 10:50 a.m.
Okay.